Alrighty, we are live. Welcome to the show to get you in the know. I am Ethan Myers here with Chrissy Smith. Post game reaction for the Saints game first. We'll kind of carry on to some other NFL topics and things like that. But other than that, post game reaction, initial reaction is not good. I just feel like the Saints are letting this doesn't feel like a game where they let it slip by their grasp like some of the other the games we lost last season and then the game we lost last week. This just feels like a loss. There's no other word for it. But initial reaction from you, how you feeling right now?
Same as you, not great. That felt like a very winnable game, especially having Kamara back, and to have the offense kind of produce as little as it did was definitely disappointing. And then when you're in a division where you feel like it's kind of wide open and whoever would have won today would have been on top of the whole division, it's just disappointing to, like you said, lose that game and not really feel like, oh, it just slipped away. Like we just straight up lost it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, I mean, for anyone who watches this, that's your number one in the NFC South now. Like whoever wins that is number one with a pretty good gap. If the Saints win it, because we already beat Carolina, so we were 1-0 in the division. We beat Tampa, we're 2-0 in division and number one in the NFC South. Like you could really carve out a solid number one seed in the NFC South with the win there. But instead, we let Tampa do that. I was trying to tweet out some bright spots, throughout the game because, as much as everybody tweets, fire this person, fire that person, it's all this person's fault. There is still some bright spots. I think I saw somebody said at this point, it's you trade like some of the veterans instead of youth. I think it's still a little early in the season for that. We do have a new quarterback. Obviously, there's concerns about some of the play calling and the schemes and stuff like that. But I tell you, the guy who just got a contract and an undrafted free agent, and Carl Granderson, and then Breesy, they both look like they get it, for being so young on that line. Those are huge bright spots for me on the defensive side. And then I was happy to see that groupie. We needed him a lot today, obviously, but for a young guy to come out and miss a potential game winner, right? We don't know how the rest of that Green Bay game goes, even if he makes that, but miss a potential game winner and come out and not look shaken at all. Doesn't look like he just lost, a potential game winner. If you had to find some bright spots with something that you saw maybe during the game that you liked.
For me, actually, I thought the O-line looked a lot better, probably the best that they played all year. And that was, we needed that. Unfortunately, it seemed like Carr had a lot of time. But I guess we just didn't have the receivers open downfield as often as we would have liked. But to see the O-line improve, we're going to definitely need that, especially to protect Carr going the rest of the season. So for me, that was honestly the bright spot. I mean, the defense has been showing up. Of course, today they gave up the most points that they have. But, and hopefully next week the offense will kind of kick it into gear a little bit. And that'll be a bright spot. Hopefully for next week. We'll need it.
Right. No, absolutely. Yeah, I think, the defense just looks worn down, and understandably so. A lot of the times those catches that they had late in the games put up the points, they were kind of like out, to the edges and corners and routes like that, to where as a cornerback or a safety or a linebacker, you've been doing that all game. You've been running east to west all game trying to keep up, and eventually you're just going to get burnt out. You're going to get tired. And it felt like the only drive that I felt like the Saints really held onto the ball a while was the one in the fourth quarter, which is the one that kind of felt like it was a touchdown or bust, and that's when the game just kind of got completely out of hand at that point, and didn't really look like it was even manageable anymore. But no, I agree. The offensive line, part of me wonders if it's something to do with, that coaching change. A lot of people said that these offensive linemen are kind of first year under the new offensive line coordinator or offensive line coach. These other guys who came in today, Penning didn't really do a lot under the old one because he was hurt. The other guy, Garcia, number 73, no idea who he is, but he came in and he looked fine outside of the one penalty. And then, they just looked like, maybe they didn't have to learn anything new. Maybe this year of practice and training camp, they only knew this new system of whatever schemes they're calling. So maybe that is a bright spot that, despite injuries and concussions and things like that, it seems like these guys who came in for injuries, they next man up, right? And they definitely did that for us. So that's definitely a positive. There were sometimes, like you said, where it felt like, I don't know if the receivers weren't open. You could argue that it might be something with Carr's arm. Maybe he didn't feel like he had the zip to get in there. But then there were some throws like that one to Michael Thomas that was barely an incompletion. Like it looked like triple coverage. He put it in the window perfectly. It just didn't get there where he needed it to be. But to me, that didn't look like an arm issue. It just looked like that was the only thing he could get it. And so he threw it, and it just didn't quite work out like he wanted it to. But, passing is an obvious need, right? I think the run game looked a little bit better today with Kamara back. But, you're just not going to win football games in the National Football League with 146 passing yards, I think it was. Let me see real quick.
Yeah, I think that was right about it.
Yeah. You're just not going to win games like that. Yeah. Other than that, we could talk negatives all day. I definitely think the defensive scheme the offensive scheme needs to get on the same page, because with as good as this defense is, you could win games with one touchdown and a couple of field goals. But the problem is you can't give them the ball inside the 5-yard line. You can't only hang on to the ball for 3 downs, get lost, and not realize that you're constantly putting that defense back on the field to do what they have to do over and over again. So your biggest go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say the last 3 games, our defense has come up with some huge plays, interceptions, special teams, running it back. And today we didn't have any of those. We had some close calls on that. We almost had a couple of interceptions, and then that one touchdown call that was reversed. So, the defense, they've been just killing it in terms of giving us points. And today they just weren't able to actually give us any points. And so to your point about the offensive scheme, like we've got to come up with actual touchdowns. We can't just play the field goal game. That's never going to work. Yeah, no.
And the only turnover this week was, the one that he intercepted it on the 1-yard line. And, I've heard that called so many times, and it's always, the defender's momentum took him into the end zone. So it's a touchback. So to hear it on the 1-yard line was confusing for me. It was almost like they were trying to lean towards safety instead of touch. I didn't quite understand the call. And even Dean Blandino, who came on the air, said that based on the rule, he felt it should have been a touchback as well. Right. But, at the end of the day, the officials there are probably always going to see it better. And as much as it sucks to really not understand the calling, you just can't fumble the ball there. That's it.
You can't. Plain and simple,
Yeah. If you're a fullback, the Saints have always had a fullback, at least, since the Sean Payton era and carrying that on into the Dennis Allen era. If you're a fullback, put 2 hands on the ball. What are you doing, bro?
Exactly.
Why are you trying to fight for a couple extra yards? We're just trying to get into the locker room at that point. That would have been a 7-3 halftime. Instead, it was 14-3. I don't understand. And then Princess had that one where Derek Carr almost saved the day, and it just went through his hands. But I just feel like,
I know,
if you're relying that much on your fullback on the offense, something's wrong. Something's not going right there.
Yeah, especially when you have the type of offensive threats that we have. But we're like, hey, we need our fullback to really come through today. We're probably going to be struggling offensively. So
exactly. You got even then. I said to somebody, you're within your own goal, so I understand the want to just get it to the next man. If that's the case, just put Taysom Hill under center and push it out, and then kneel at once. I just don't understand what in the world the logic was there. But enough about I guess the Saints. Now we'll kind of get into a little bit of divisional talk. So Falcons lost 2-2, same as the Saints now, and then the Buccaneers obviously won because they beat us, unfortunately, and then the Panthers fall to 0-4. Panthers looked like they were going to steal one from Minnesota early on. They looked hot, but they cooled off quickly. And the Falcons, somebody, Desmond Ridder, just I don't know quite yet if he's an NFL quarterback. It's a little bit all over. Bryce Young looks about as advertised, young, inexperienced, but definitely talented. But we kind of talked about it before we hopped on the live. Baker Mayfield might be the answer for the Bucs for the foreseeable future. It hurts me to say that, but he might be the answer. I mean, 3 touchdowns. They said he's only done that 9 times in his career. That feels crazy. I mean, I know Baker, he's not, the Aaron Rodgers or, aged quarterback, but he's still been around for a solid minute. And the fact that he's only done that 9 times and one is against the Saints defense, who's been very good. He definitely may be the answer.
It's
but
wild.
You gotta,
I mean,
yeah.
Saying that.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, and I think one positive takeaway, though, is that the division is still up for the taking. I mean, we're only 4 games in, and we aren't in a super strong division. So 2-2, we're still right in the mix, but we've got to just fix some of these issues. And it looks like we are. I mean, like we said, we come a long way with the offensive line so far. So, yeah, the division is still up for the taking. And, we maybe just need a little more film on Baker Mayfield or something.
Right. Yeah. I made the comment in the pregame show that hopefully Baker Mayfield, picks up where Tom Brady left off against the Saints, because Saints have always had Tom Brady's number, even in his Patriot days. But no, he came in and he was Baker Mayfield of his college days, so. But yeah, to your point, the Saints are still 1-1 in the division. The Bucs are obviously 1 game up on us, unless it comes down to a tiebreaker between the Bucs and the Saints, which, the past 6 years, it's came down to late season, wins and losses, especially with us in the Bucs and the years that Brady was there. So, something to definitely look out for in the division is, does it kind of tighten up? Maybe, hopefully Atlanta continues to fall, because according to Cam Jordan, that's our only rivalry. And I'm always about the Falcons being the Falcons, It's always entertaining. Even if we're having a bad season, it's fun to watch them also be bad.
Yeah, for sure.
But the Falcons, no matter what, they'll always come to play against the Saints. So I don't write them off for the later game in the season. But other than that, divisional wise, do you have anything, something that you saw maybe this week against a divisional opponent?
No, not much. I do think that it is kind of shaping up where it does look like Saints and Bucs again. As you mentioned, like the last 6 years, it's been either the Saints or Bucs who have won the division. So I think it could be that way again. So we'll just have to see as the season progresses, with injuries, things like that, kind of what shapes out.
Yeah. So we'll hop into some around the NFL talk before we get into anything else, because you just mentioned injuries and how things shape up. Tre'Davious White, possible Achilles injury. I looked up the field before we got on the thing, and it was turf. I'm not saying I don't know statistics. I don't know, actual numbers, but it feels like if enough players are complaining about it to the point where the NFL Players Association is making a point about it, there might be something there, because, Aaron Rodgers' injury was on turf. Now Tre'Davious White's injury is on turf. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on around the league if that continues. And it feels like in general, the NFL has been very injury prone this season. A part of me leans towards less practice, less mandatory camps, more veteran rest days. I think if you take a car and you drive at 80 miles per hour for 3 hours, and you get to your destination and you park it and you drive at another 80 miles per hour for 3 hours, and you repeat that process, I think similar to a body, the car is going to kind of, get into a rhythm. When you're taking these athletes who are the fastest, strongest, most agile people in the world, and you're putting their body in rest mode for so many months out of the year, sure, they're still doing all these core exercises and training and stuff like that. You see Alvin Kamara standing on balancing balls while catching triangles, and all this other stuff. But I don't think you can assume every player is doing that in the off season. And I just feel like you have to equate some of the injuries to turf, but you also have to think about the fact that teams are practicing less, teams are doing less in the off season. And I think it's adding up to something. But outside of that, if you wanted to touch on that or anything else around the NFL that you wanted to bring up.
Yeah, I do think that the turf topic is going to be taken really seriously. But I definitely agree with you in that resting, you've got to rest. It's part of being an athlete. But are they using their rest days strategically? And, are they just maybe out of shape to more of an extent than they typically are? I don't know. But you hate to see it because that's a huge draw for every game, is just to watch the top players play. And I mean, even with like the Bengals, just looking at them and Burrow this year, at Jamar Chase, I mean, this is a totally different looking team than we've seen like last year and the year before. So those injuries, they of course bother the players and all of that and the teams, but from a fan perspective, it's tough to see too, because you want to get to win the best play. So yeah, they'll probably have
absolutely.
to at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah, steel sharpens steel. So it always, especially for a player like, Rodgers or Tre'Davious White. I mean, these guys are great at their position for a reason, and people, like you said, that's, the Jets. I don't think you even mentioned the Jets on national television if they didn't pick up Rodgers at this point,
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. I guess, what's his name? The Zach Wilson. He could have had another offseason fiasco. Yeah. So, but that's pretty much it for them, but it was exciting to see, and now it's just bad for football whenever you have that. But I know we were talking NFL, but I'll talk NBA for a second to kind of bring home the point. They talked about Zion on the years that he's played the most was the year that Coach K made him practice twice a day, and then whenever he was with. Now I don't think SVG was the coach for the Pelicans, but that was the year that he played the most, because SVG made those guys practice and run 2-a-days and all this stuff. When you're conditioning your body to take a certain amount of abuse, it's going to continue to be able to take. You're going to build up all those other, almost like scar tissue. That's what's going to happen. But other than that, looking forward, I think we have the rest of the games tonight. The big Sunday night game is going to be interesting to watch, because I don't know if you caught the Toy Story thing. It's not going to be Toy Story. I don't know. I just thought about the Toy Story game, but the Chiefs and the Jets. We'll see if the Chiefs kind of find that offensive rhythm. They've been a little bit disconnected, but against the Jets, it feels like it's just time to find your rhythm, kind of like the Eagles did, and the Bills did today against Miami. You just have to eventually figure that part out to be a contender in the NFL for the Super Bowl. But any other game you're kind of looking forward to that's either on right now or potentially going forward?
Looking forward to the Toy Story game, actually. So that one's going to be fun to watch. Definitely, my 3 kids are all going to hang out and watch some of that. It's a fun angle. At first, I thought this is the worst idea ever. Now I'm like, this is so cool. Who's ever thought of this? So,
yeah, I think the Who Effing Knows guys tweeted from their pod account earlier, like, I want every nonsense game to be in this format from now on. And it's like, yeah, it adds an element. I know last year, I think it was the Pro Bowl that they did the Nickelodeon version. And that was like, kind of ridiculous over the top. But this Toy Story one was like really, really good, where it's like seeing like a little, toy version of somebody do a spin move and get out the pocket and run for a first down was ridiculous, but it was entertaining nonetheless. But other than that, we'll kind of wrap it up with some, touchdown scores. I don't know. We'll just look at the last game today. So we have Chiefs and the Jets. We'll go one on each side. Anytime touchdown scorer. Who do you have for the Chiefs side?
I'm going Kelsey. He's got to score. He's got to.
Yeah. No, I was thinking Kelsey as well. So I'm not going to go Kelsey this time because that just feels like cheating because you said it. But I actually like the chances of a Kansas City defense anytime touchdown scorer. It's Jets, you just got Zach Wilson, who's, he's Zach Wilson. He's going to either throw for 300 yards or 30. But yeah, I'm going to go Chiefs for the Chiefs side. And then on the Jets side, I would be hard pressed to name anyone on the Jets that I could think of that would score a touchdown that is not the running back right now, Breesy or Rice. Yeah. I don't even. Is he still hurt? He was hurt. Let me check before I say that. I don't want to be wrong.
I think they've got Hall and Cook. Those are the two. But I don't know.
I'm thinking Saints. Yeah. Hall. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, that's who I would go with. I mean, either that or if they luck up in special teams does something. I don't know. I don't see any of the receivers doing anything unless they run a trickeration play and Zach Wilson somehow does something. I don't know. That's going to be a really tough game for the Jets tonight.
Yeah, I would almost say that Randall Cobb probably has the best chance. I just looked up their thing. They actually have some names that I guess because you don't hear about them right now, but McCole Hardman, Alan Lazard, Garrett Wilson, who we know is a stud. He looks really, really good. But yeah, I didn't know they had McCole and Lazard. That's pretty crazy. It makes sense. Lazard followed Rodgers over there, and now he's stuck with Zach Wilson. But other than that, you got anything else?
No, we just hope Saints get a win next week. Gonna be wishing for that, hoping for it. Hopefully everybody stays healthy and just see what can happen. We need a win for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We got New England, Belichick and Mac Jones over there. So it should be one where the defense is able to kind of, hold the game down. You're always worried about, guys who aren't having great seasons turning around the Saints. That's the tale as old as time, not even just this season, but guys, it almost feels like the Pelicans do the same thing. Some guy who's just like just career game against the Pelicans, whatever. I'm going to drop a 30 bomb on you guys, but
right.
All right, cool. Well, again, thank you for joining the show to keep you in the know. This has been the Post Game Saints show. Tune in next week for the pregame and postgame.